Welcome to episode 4 of Rising Leaders Stories from the Legacy of Young Athena. In this episode, we are ecstatic to introduce you to Lilly, who's an inspiring young Athena alumni and recent college graduate. Currently, you are a youth aid support for Firm Foundation, right? Is that what it's called? And it's like youth houses?
Youth homes.
Youth homes.
Yeah,
okay, perfect. And so I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but like for their whole mission is supporting foster children, right? In the state of Arizona.
Yeah. So it's a group home, and then our goal, our mission is to provide like compassion and grace to girls in the foster care system and give them a loving home as much as we can.
I love that. Awesome. You're also a camp counselor, right, for the Girl Scouts of Southern Arizona, where you're like working with future female leaders, right, in the Girl Scout troops. I love that, and helping them build confidence and essential life skills. Super powerful. Yeah. So previously, though, and how we met was that through GCU, our connection there. At the time, you were the VP of the Rise Fellowship, correct? Right? And then you were...
Well, we met before I was even VP.
Oh, so there might be a Young Athena plug in there somewhere. An inspiring female leader. Oh, I love this so much. Okay, we'll get into that in a minute. And then you were, what did she tell me? It's like the editorial director for Spoon University. So I'm going to have to ask what that is, because I don't even know what that is. Yeah. What's Spoon University?
So I was the president and editorial director of Spoon University. And Spoon University is online content creation all about food geared towards college students. So there's multiple chapters throughout the country. And then I started the one at Grand Canyon University. So I was the editorial director. And that was mainly kind of focusing on like what projects we wanted to do, what things we wanted to work on, as well as editing and encouraging the writing team. So I have some articles published on there. I've also published other people's articles on there, and then just coordinated all the club things.
Dang. Awesome. Either way, I mean, all of that included, because that's part of your amazing story. We are ecstatic to have you here as our November feature for the Young Athena podcast. The theme for the month is actually gratitude. So since we're approaching the Thanksgiving season, but time to reflect on that. But we are happy to have you as our food expert, a Young Athena, of course, and a complete embodiment of truly what this program is all about. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So digging into that,
I would love to be.
Oh my gosh, good. Like, I just feel like we're going to have a love fest this whole time, which is fine because I haven't seen you in a while. I would love for you to talk to me about kind of like what you're doing right now. So introduce yourself, like first, last name, so everybody can find you on all the places. But then also like talk to me about all the work you do just in like women's, I don't want to call it leadership because you're kind of all over the place, like working with children, especially. So there's some positive youth development components of that and a couple of the things. So just kind of give me the lay of the land and like about all the work you're doing with young women right now.
My name is Lilly Trigodic. Growing up, I was in the Girl Scouts, and my first like ever dream job, I would say, was to be a camp counselor at the camp I grew up going to. And so after my sophomore year of college, I was able to go back to camp, and I was able to do that. And then this past summer, I was able to be a unit leader. So not only was I empowering the girls that I was responsible for week by week, but I was also in charge of varying counselors and making sure that they felt empowered to do their job and just supporting them through, you're giving your all because you're there Monday afternoon until Friday afternoon. So like you really have to give your all. You're on 24 hours a day, basically. And so that was just wonderful to watch, like counselors that came in with absolutely no experience and like watch them get their footing and be one of the people to empower them to do that. And now I am youth aid support in a girls group home, foster home. So these girls are in the foster care system, and most of the time they are like, their case managers ask them to be placed in our home. So we have a lot of older like teens. They're mainly, we have 6 teenagers, so they're all in high school, and then we have 2 littles that are in elementary school. And so it's a lot of just teaching them how to like stay on top of their life, communicate in all areas of life. It's very much just parenting, and you're co-parenting with other staff members. You're getting them to school, you're getting them to appointments, you're convincing them to go to appointments. You're building relationships with these girls, you're gaining their trust, as well as like they're gaining your trust, and trying to teach them how much trust matters in those relationships, because it's like, I'm being honest with you, but I need you to be honest with me in return. So it's just a wonderful position to be in, and I feel so honored to know those girls.
I love this so much. So, kind of taking you back to a little of my history, I worked at a nonprofit that helped underage victims of trafficking, and we housed girls ages 11 to 17, and we had 40 beds. And I will tell you, like, even to date, so any of my street light girls that are going to be out here listening to this, I still have so much love for all of them. And like, I follow them all on socials. And like, I'm that super nurturing, like maternal type too. So I love that you're in this field, because I feel like as women, essentially, there's a nurturing piece in us that some of us come with on this earth, where it's innate, like, right? Like my nurtureness is very innate. I feel like I've been nurturing people my entire life. But and I feel like in some situations when children end up in the foster system, they're kind of robbed of that like nurturing maternal balance of relationship, of like, you have a soft spot to land when life gets a little hard, and they just don't have that same familial unit experience. So I love that this is like part of the mission that you're serving right now, of just being honored to know them and how special it is too, because I think a lot of them feel like they're fish out of water a lot. And that's like a common theme with a lot of the girls, where I just don't fit. I don't belong. I don't belong anywhere. I don't have a family. I don't have a this. And it's like, no, you do belong. You belong right here and in this relationship and in this time. And I love that you're in it. So I can completely empathize with all of that, because those girls are incredibly special, and I feel like they're just not taught that they're special. So thank you for doing the work that you do to make them understand how special they are, because it's magical. Some of those girls still reach out to me sometimes, and I think that was like 2013 or something, like 12 and 13 is when I worked there. So the work you're doing is going to truly go miles beyond what you probably could even imagine you're contributing. So appreciate that. Okay, so it's a crossover though. So you help girls in the group home, and then you also help the counselor, right? So like, you're just in positive youth development all over the place, which I love so much. What was your major at GCU?
I was a communications major with a minor in professional writing. So this is really just something that I like felt called to. One of my passions is empowering young women and teaching them independence and autonomy. But yeah, when I graduated, I was like, I'm gonna go into marketing. I'm gonna be the PR girly, and here I am, just being able to like take some step back from like my future career, and just be able to like take the time and the energy that I have now to love on these girls.
Oh, so good. It's so good. Thank you. I'm so grateful that you're there doing that work. It's so powerful. I've literally seen lives changed because of women in your position. So thank you. So let's dig into the Young Athena program a little bit, because I want to talk about some of your transformation in that area. So talk to me about what first motivated you to join Young Athena, and like what was your first impressions of like what you kind of jumped into?
I I have like the worst memory in
It's
the
okay.
world, but I feel like I was doing it mainly because I was doing like all of the GCU honors college programs. So I was like, well, I gotta do this one. It's for women and I'm a feminist, so let's go. And I wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into. Um, but my first impression was I was just so excited to like do a little collage. I remember being like a little scary to get vulnerable like that because I feel like I've definitely grown up and continue to fight the notion that like vulnerability can be a weakness. So like that was quite scary. But I remember like first week after the intro week, we did values, and I like completely broke down in front of everybody. And I feel like the love I received after that just reaffirmed that like it's okay to be in this space and it is a safe space.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot. Values is always, people are always unpacking in the values time, right? Especially when we figure out that sometimes it's what we lacked when we were young.
Yeah.
We at Young Athena yesterday, we talked through Act Courageously, and so many of the
Mm,
stories of courage were rooted in I finally was able to be vulnerable. So I love that you brought that up just now,
yeah.
because it's like maybe it's the theme of the week is just remembering that the act of choosing to soften your heart from anger or resentment or all of those things and truly communicate from that heart-centered place of vulnerability is the most courageous act you could ever gift yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's true. I armored up. I wore armor for majority of my life before I was like, oh, forget this. Like, this armor is no longer serving me. And I'm spending so much of my pattern and anger and resentment and like all of those big emotions when really, no, actually, my feelings are really hurt and I'm choosing to be angry over hurt feelings. But they're two different modes of communication. So my message was never getting across because I was spending all my time being grumpy and mad, and people weren't seeing it. They're just
Yeah.
resistant to my experience. So yeah, it's powerful. That's core values always gets people. So I love that. So what was your like favorite moment from Young Athena? Um, and like how did your Young Athena moments influence you? Like obviously beyond just that one experience.
I think the like week one was just like learning to be authentic and knowing who you are in your values. And while my values I feel like have changed a little bit, what I think is funny is that this week is gratitude, and gratitude was one of my first core values, like the first time I did it through. Um, or it was like recognition, which was very similar in my definition to gratitude. So I think learning that and learning why I function the way I do in relationships, in spaces, and why sometimes like those hurt feelings come up because my values are maybe not being honored right now, and recognizing that is like something that's so life changing. Like understanding that like this is where the hurt is coming from because I don't feel belonging, because my three core values are belonging, candor, and empowerment. So usually when I'm in a new space, just in general, I don't have those three things right away, because you're adjusting to belonging, you're still trying to find that community, you're still trying to find your place. So you can't be completely candid yet. You don't really have the tools to like empower yourself and really put yourself out there. So understanding that those things change with time and it takes time, and but understanding that like I don't feel this way because I'm in a bad place. I feel this way because I'm still learning and growing and getting used to where I am.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And then especially I'm like looking at, I'm like, yeah, with belonging as a core value, that's going to be one that is probably, there's probably some warm up to that. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
And then
it takes a bit to get there, and that is really annoying to me.
yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, and I was just talking to somebody that I was coaching a little while ago, and we were talking about how the opposite of belonging is actually fitting in. Because if you're fitting in, you don't truly belong because you're altering who you are in order to fit whatever that time space reality is. And so you can't actually
Yeah,
belong in a place that you're only fitting in because you're morphing who you are. There's not that like sense of like true authentic self. So yeah, I wouldn't even have thought through that of like, oh, belonging, but it's going to take you a little while to feel like you belong. So yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. So how has, now that you understand that, do you approach like any new experiences differently where you like are able to check that value and be like, okay, I'm not going to belong right away. So how do you kind of like mentally help yourself through that so you don't sit in values conflict?
I think the biggest thing is just like going out there. Like when I moved back to Phoenix, none of my friends were here yet. So it was like a conflict to get myself into new spaces where I could find that belonging because I'm a homebody. If I could, I would just stay home all the time. But knowing that I can't do that because it's not good for me. So like it almost acts as a motivation where it's like I need to do these things if I want to feel this belonging. If I want to feel like I can be like the most candid version of myself. I can't do that staying home
Right, that's
and
true.
waiting for people to come to me. Like that's
Yeah.
just not how life works.
Unless you had cats, right? No, I'm just kidding. If you became the cat lady, then maybe you'd feel a sense of belonging. But even then, it probably wouldn't be fulfilling, right? Because they wouldn't be talking to you about life
Yeah,
skills or the lives you're changing. Yeah.
yeah,
No, I love
yeah.
that. That's awesome. So, talk to me about how the Athena program kind of shifted your perspectives from one leadership, right? Because right now you were in a leadership position at GCU, and now you're leading like young girls to their truth, and then but also community, since belonging is your thing. How did the Athena program shift your perspectives in both of those areas?
Young Athena gave me a space to like be vulnerable and make like the friends that I made in Young Athena are like friends that I know that I can always go to, even if we don't see each other all the time, even if we don't text each other all the time. Like the space that was created there, like I met Ashley there. Ashley is like the yin to my yang, like absolutely insane. But I think just like finding a space that you can be that vulnerable and acknowledging that like you can be the culture creator that creates that was something that was so important to me because I don't think I've ever been in a space where it was that open and that transparent and that vulnerable, and knowing that those spaces could be created and not everything has to be superficial. Like we can get down and dirty, even if it is a 5-minute conversation. Like you can be authentic with me about how you're feeling, and you don't have to just bury it down because you feel like you're in a professional space. I think was something that was really important to me and something that I continue to like hold important to me when I look at like workspaces and just spaces in general.
I love that. I just saw a meme the other day that said something to the effects of, when I ask you how you are, I want the whole story. Because it's like, it's so true.
Yeah,
Like I like want to hold space for the whole story. Because the very superficial,
yeah,
like, I'm good, like that doesn't work for me. That's not authentic. And I'm such an authentic person that if you are having authentic, real feelings that you need to get off your chest, like I will hold space for the whole story. It's so important. So I love that you
yeah.
recognize that. So in like, let's kind of shift this. Is that kind of the sense of community that you like to create in the foster home too? Like where it's like okay to talk about the hard things and it's like okay to feel how you feel. Or as a camp counselor, do you kind of cross that over to create those cultures within the girls you work with?
I feel like at Girl Scout camp, I feel like my goal is to accept girls where they're at. So that's our biggest thing is like challenge by choice. So accepting like, okay, you don't want to do this hard thing. Let's find another way to participate. Like we're still going to challenge you, but you're still giving an option. And also giving them a space to be kids and be silly. And I feel like so much of like the younger generation is focusing on like growing up and like even I was there. But like having a space where you can just be a kid and be silly and do stupid things without judgment because everybody's doing the stupid thing. That is something that I think is like so important. Silliness is like one of the best things that you could ever have in life. An ability to be silly is one of the best tools you could have.
Yeah, because laughter is so like contagious and I do like some of that stuff with my kids too, where it's like the little silliness or we laugh or and even now with my teenagers too, like we send reels back and forth. And we can even be like laying in the same bed and we're sending videos back and forth to each other because like you're like, oh, this is hilarious, right? Or something my kids think is funny. And then I also think it's funny. And then now we're like, there's connection. I think there's beautiful connection that's created through being silly or that laughter space or just like it's truly a experience of freedom. Like when you are in
Mm-hmm.
laughter and in joy and in that connection of laughter and joy, there's a true sense of freedom that exists there. And I would bet that a lot of the girls that you work with are like they're not used to freedom. They've been wards of a system for a long time and that's a really hard place to be. So yeah, super powerful. So on that note, and talking about the girls in particular, are there like struggles that you've seen that the girls face that like might not be apparent to other people right away? What are your experiences with them and like how can we like advocate more to whether it's resources or whether it's like anything, how like what's your kind of experience with that? What are their struggles and what are things that we can do as the general population to support? Besides, I want to adopt all the
I
teenagers in
think
the whole world. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I think allowing them I gotta really think about this because I have a lot of things.
You can give them all to me. We just covered that I want the whole
Allowing
story.
it's like a lot, but it's not like I can't exactly articulate everything, but I think teaching girls that they can be independent and not alone.
Mm.
Um, I think a lot of the girls struggle with the idea that at the end of the day, they don't have anyone. And it's so sad to like hear them say that. And it's so hard for them to like make that first step to make connections and build those relationships, even like with adults. The relationships that like adults can have with girls these age as like a mentor is so important because if you think about kids in a normal family, they're going to have their friends' parents. They're going to have like their teachers that they feel like they can really connect with. They're going to have their coaches. But when you're in foster care, it's stripped down a little bit. And like, although the people that work in the group home, like, we are not there for like money. We're there to serve them. But at the end of the day, there's still that you are like, you're working here. And so I think allowing, like, putting, like, if adults that aren't necessarily involved in the foster care system put themselves out in a way to just like be of service to young women, even women that aren't in the foster care system, allowing them to be like a mentor to them. And because I think some of the lessons they learn best are from people that aren't necessarily their parents, like the people that they can be honest with. Because at the end of the day, I'm a parental role in their life. So if like there's still those like authority, like I don't necessarily want to be completely honest with you because you have a level of you can get me in trouble, rather than like if people took the time to just join mentorship programs and get connected with these like girls and just be of service and be like be able to be honest with them and be like, let's think this through, let's like sometimes they learn those hard truths better from an outside source than the people that they see every day. And so I think building those connections that are more permanent is really important to them, because at the end of the day, a lot of them feel like they don't have anyone. And they do, and that they can be independent and they can do these things, but they still need those connections. So I think that is the biggest thing that I think the like general population can do to like help these kids, help foster those connections with them.
Oh, I love that. We should figure out a way to like get that information too. So maybe I'll have Ashley add it to like just the actual foundation that you work for, the company that you work for, so we can figure out how to like really leverage those mentor relationships. Because I know when I was working at Streetlight, also we had a mentorship program. In addition to direct care staff that were the ones that were actually like in the cottages supporting the girls. There was just so many ways that we tried to like just collectively support them. One of the things that I thought was really interesting when I was going through like the trauma-informed care certification program, when I was doing that nonprofit work, was looking at how a lot of the mentality from the mentorship is like, I want to save these kids, right? And the reality is when they're plugged into a system like yours already, the reality is they've already been saved. Now we need to enrich the lives of these kids, right? And so I think that that was another thing that was eye-opening to me, was there was a lot of like savior mentality, like we have to save all the kids, and it was like, enrich them, right? If they're already in a foster care that has a like good resources, they have a case manager. Hopefully that case manager is helpful. A lot of times family reunification is a thing. Like they might be working through it. It might be a temporary foster situation. So you never know the whole story. The reality is we need to enrich them exactly where they are right now, instead of trying to change the environment yet again, right? Because they've already had how many environmental changes their entire existence. And then now we're going, okay, let's change the environment again because I need to save you. And it's like, no, let them settle here and enrich them in ways that empowers them to have a better, brighter, better foundation for their future. So that was like eye-opening to me, because I was like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to adopt all of them. And I'm like, obviously I don't have financial capacity to do that. And like, that's not realistic. I was also trying to raise my own family. But what I could do was enrich the lives of the young women that were in our house as well. And I'm like, okay, I got that piece. Like I'm really good at like female enrichment. So that's super powerful. So on that note, are there things that you've learned from Athena that you're like, or tools that you've built from the Young Athena program that you're like now instilling in these young women? Have you done that like knowledge transfer and given them tools? No?
It's so
Yeah,
crazy at the
that's
house
okay.
all the time.
No, I know. Girl, we had 40 girls in our center. So yeah, so no, I totally get that. Yeah, but I mean, there's a level of permission that you provide though, even talking about the silliness piece, right? because we all have
Mhm.
that silliness in it. It's just whether we're authentically going to allow it out. And even before we started and jumped on this series, I was talking to you about your laugh, because your laugh is so contagious. Like there's just something so special about it. And so then I'm like, oh, of course we want to be silly with Lilly, because why wouldn't we? Because it's just so contagious. But I bet in essence you're teaching them things through your authentic lens that you probably don't even realize you're teaching them. Because as women, when the more
Yeah, it,
authentic we can be, yeah, the more permission that other women in our circle get permission to be. So I would bet there's some passing on you're doing there, that you don't even realize that you're doing. So maybe we need a
yeah.
Young Athena
I
program
think
there.
that's the
Just shameless plug.
come to the house.
Yeah, no, I love it so much. Okay, so a couple of things. So you are a foodie of sorts, now that I know that you wrote for the
Mhm.
spoon and like all of the things. So in honor of like complete off the record Thanksgivingness, like what's your favorite Thanksgiving food? Talk to me about that.
My
Or
favorite
do you even
Thanksgiving
like
food is
things? Go ahead.
stuffing.
Stuffing.
I love Thanksgiving.
You do? Tell me. Is it just like the food and the people, or like,
Thanksgiving
yeah.
Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. And in high school, everyone knew this about me. I liked maple syrup, hockey, and Thanksgiving. Those are my like three personality traits for a while. And at one point, I made a whole slideshow as to why Thanksgiving is the best holiday. And the main reasons were like Christmas is usually a favorite. And what I have to say to that is there's a lot of like build up to have the perfect Christmas season.
Oh.
Thanksgiving, you show up and you eat. And that I think is beautiful. Like I feel like with Christmas it's like, well, I got to get these people presents, I got to do this before this certain date. Like it feels like a lot of deadlines. And Thanksgiving, you show up, you eat food, you're with people, you eat pie. It's awesome. So my favorite Thanksgiving dish is stuffing. And of course our stuffing isn't in the turkey, but I refuse to call it dressing because I think that's silly.
Right.
But my mom has like perfected it into a certain way that I like it. She puts like green apples, peppers, onions in the stuffing. She lets it get crispy on the top, and it's just so good with my gravy. I love gravy too.
You want to hear the saddest thing of all time? I'm allergic to flour, so I can't have gravy
Yeah,
or
that is like
stuffing.
that's my biggest fear in life is being allergic to like gluten or anything that really gets in the way of me eating bread. Um, I don't know how I would live.
I know, right? I didn't know how I was going to live either. But you know what? I got 21 solid years eating all the good stuff, and then I mean, they make gluten-free stuffing. Let's call it. I don't want to knock and say like, "Oh, there's not options there," cuz gluten-free's come a long way since I went gluten-free in '08. And yeah, so there definitely is. But since I went 21 years eating all the good stuff, like I know what good stuffing and good gravy is made of. And I feel like having to switch that over to gluten free is not it's not the easiest transition either. So
Yeah,
so when
it
you're
can't
sitting
be.
at your Thanksgiving table this year and you're like eating like a solid, fork full of stuffing and some good gravy, yeah, just like cheers to me from afar, okay? Because
Okay,
I
I
will be
will.
eating gluten free options. Yeah. So anyway, I digress. Okay, so let's talk about Thanksgiving season. So you love it for the food, but you talked
Hmm.
earlier about how gratitude was one of your core values for a while. It's currently, you would say, not in your top three, but it's probably in your list of top 10. So talk to me about like
Yeah.
gratitude and like your definition of gratitude, and has that evolved over time?
Well, my love language is words of affirmation.
Okay.
So I love when people like just thank you for like doing something, and knowing that what I did had an effect on your day and made it just a little bit better. Like, there's been rough moments in the house, and just like thanking like your coworker for maybe backing you up um is just so key, because sometimes it feels like very thankless work because the girls are upset, or like they don't want to do what you're asking them and they're taking it out on you because you're their safe space. So I think like thanking the people, the fellow adults that are with you, for like having your back in those moments and seeing where you're at is just so key to like having any kind of good environment. But I also, thank you cards are always big in my family. And when I was little, I thought they were annoying, but like really looking back and like being able to like really thank the people in your life is so important. Like, anytime I sign a birthday card, I'm thanking them for being in my life because they're making my life better, and I want them to know that. So it's just something that's important to me because I also love being thanked.
Yeah, I love that though. I've never even thought about that. I mean, I was gonna say like I'm saying happy birthday, but very rarely do I feel like I've actually uttered the words thank you in a birthday card. So that's incredibly powerful. Thank you for that like little tidbit of knowledge, because it's true. If I'm taking the time to give you a birthday card, it's truly because I value you and I value your position you have in my life, and I'm grateful for all that you are. But you're right. How many times do we say that? Like, I blast my best friend with that sometimes, where I'm just like, hope you know how grateful I am for you today, because but I haven't said it in weeks. Like, and I feel like I do it through my actions, but I think sometimes we should say that more. And gratitude is not on my core values list. Does that mean I'm not grateful? No, I'm incredibly grateful for everything. But I think the little things like you're mentioning, like the thank you in a birthday card, or just actually uttering the words thank you in amidst a time of chaos. I think there's so many thankless jobs in the world. Customer service is such a thankless job. Like, we all just assume that when I need something, customer service is going to handle it. But how often are we saying thank you? Or how often are we asking the person behind the counter, how are you? Right? There's so many times where I ask people, I'm like, how are you today? And they're like, me? I'm like, yes, how are you? Like, I'm asking you. You're a human behind this counter, and I want to know how you are, right? Like, yeah, you're so right. So thanks for putting that. So I want to touch on the house really quick though. How many girls are like currently in the house that you support?
8.
Okay, so you guys have like, it's an
And that's
8-bed
our limit.
house. Yeah. Okay, perfect. And
Yeah.
then do you typically run like 2 people per shift? Like is it like, because it's a 24-hour
Yeah, it's
center, I
usually
would
like
assume, right?
2 to 3 people in the evening. So it's like afternoon to like 9 p.m. There's usually 3 people because that's usually when the girls are home. And then there's usually like
Homework.
one person in the morning while the girls are at school. And then there's usually at least 3 people on from overnight, that AM person. And then usually someone comes in for transportation just to get the girls to school.
Got it. So what advice would you
It's a
give?
whole mission organization to get the girls to school.
Yeah, 100%. We had the same issue. We actually brought school on campus in the nonprofit I was at. We brought an online school internal with like a teacher that sat with them in the classroom. Because it was hard. Like, getting them to get up and want to go to school is definitely a feat. So on that note though, like, creating a supportive environment for the girls to want to do better, right? Because that's the reality. A lot of times they come in when they've been in foster care a long time, and there's just like an overall sense of defeat. Like, they've just kind of given up and checked out, and it's like, whatever I get at this point is whatever I get. So if we're creating like a supportive environment for them, 2 questions here. One, like, what advice would you give for creating a supportive environment? But then 2, with your like being very gratitude centered, have you like poured some of that into them about being appreciative and being thankful for the people who are currently showing up for them? Do you have those conversations?
I think answering the first question about like how do you like get to those girls, I think meeting them where they're at. And I think coming from like an outside perspective where like I know not everyone's gonna go out and seek this job. But like joining mentorship where you just these girls that like if you buy them a meal, any fast food meal that they want, like there's already so much like rapport built with them. Just by getting them like there's so many times where I'll just take them to McDonald's after we like ran an errand or something. And I will be like, you can get something that's $2. And that builds so much with them. And so I think mentors that like come in and meet them where they're at and just give them a space away from the home, because as much as we want to create it as a loving space, like I can't imagine living with 8 other people all the time and like having people come and go. Like that is a lot for their nervous systems already, and they've already gone through so much. So being able to take them out of that space, give them that one-on-one time, because as much as staff we try to give them that one-on-one time, like there's 7 other kids there and there's only 3 staff. So like having people that are willing to come do that and just love on them outside of the home, take them places, is so key to their development. Um, and then, yeah, usually when like mentors will take them out, we'll usually tell them to like thank them afterwards. My favorite thing is when girls have seen how hard that you're trying to connect with them or try to get something across. Maybe they don't say it in the moment, because a lot of the times emotions are high and they can't recognize it. But when they thank you afterwards, and just telling them that like that means so much to me. Like I have a girl and she hates mornings, and I was working overnight and I was like, okay, what do you need in the morning to like get to school? And she's like, I want my water bottle full and I want my yogurt, and please just make sure I'm awake by this time. So I made sure she was awake by the time. She looked like she wanted to kill me the entire time. But about 3 hours later, she texted me and she said, thank you for making sure I got to school and filling up my water bottle and making sure that I was ready to go. I know that I wanted to like kill you in the moment, but I am thankful. And so those moments like that are really sweet.
Yeah.
And they make it worth it for me.
100%. Yeah, just like making the small difference, right? And giving them the voice to like actually articulate what their needs are, right? Because I think that's another thing that, especially foster kids who've been underserved for a long time and like foster houses that weren't like taking good care of them, I feel like they just stop asking. Like they're just like, I just know that I'm going to be underserved for the rest of my life, and that's just my reality. So I love that. Like even just giving them the ability to say, fill my water, make my yogurt, get me up at this time, right? Like what an empowering moment that she has. And then for someone to listen and care enough to actually make that happen. Yeah. Thank you for being you, like doing all this great work, because seriously, like, I haven't been in it specifically where you are, but I've been in similar situations, and I can't even tell you how many times the girls just wanted to sit in my office to talk because there wasn't a lot of space holding. They also had 8 girls per house, right? That's the limit. I think that's the Arizona statute limit. And so when you have 8 girls in a house, and yeah, your direct care staff is 2 to 3 people, and it's a 24-hour household. So you get the same faces, right? But then there's only 40 hours in a week. So you eventually fall into a routine. But it's still 8 moods. It's 8 menstrual cycles. It's 8, right? Like it's like 8 hormone swings. It's 8. Yeah. And they're all like, especially the ones you were saying, a lot of the girls that live with you guys are teenagers, right? And so then you're like, oh my goodness, like holy guacamole. I have 2 girls at home, and sometimes mornings are our hardest time of the day. And my girls like school most days. So yeah, it's really hard. Okay, so any final thoughts? Well, I'd love to like just hear, now that you're a young Athena, right? You've been a young Athena for like a year now? A year? Year and a half. I think it's almost been a year and a half. Yeah. Anyway.
Year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. That's exciting. So like key takeaways. What parts of Young Athena are in your work every day?
The values, exercise,
Okay.
be authentic, like learning how to advocate for yourself is something I didn't talk about it a lot, but I think that is the thing that I teach the girls, is teaching them, like, you might not know what you're feeling right now, or how I can help you, but like, I cannot help you until you're able to tell me. And just teaching them those small things of like advocating for themselves, like, but also teaching them that, like, you can't talk to me like this. I can't help you until you're in a calmer space, and then you can advocate for yourself in that moment. And I think that is something that is so beautiful. And I do it in Girl Scouts as well, because I think as women, a lot of the times our needs are like pushed aside, in a way that is like harmful to ourselves. We put a lot of people above ourselves, and we make it harder for ourselves to advocate for ourselves. So as soon as you learn how to advocate for yourself, even if it's in the grocery store, even if they got your coffee order wrong, learn how to do it in a nice way, but advocate for yourself, because that is the best skill that you can learn as a woman. And it's something that society does not teach us to come naturally. And then also being courageous, taking those steps to find yourself community, to be vulnerable. If you're never scared, you're not going to learn anything. And that's something that I've challenged some of the girls on, is that they're like, no, I don't want to go to this thing because I've never been there before and I don't know anybody. And I'm just like, how are you going to know anybody if you don't go?
Right, if you never try.
Like, and then watching them be upset, leave the room, and come back and be like, you were right. And I'm like, I know I'm right. I know I don't have a full frontal lobe yet, but I do know a lot of things.
Right. Right? That
So
the
I
frontal
think those are
cortex
my
is,
3 big takeaways.
yeah. I love that.
Live
I love that.
authentically, advocate,
Okay.
and be courageous.
Oh, so good. That's this where we're at right now. We're doing champion with the Young Athenas at GCU right now. So we just did act courageously, and next week is advocate fiercely. Yeah. So those are 2 essential skills. And we were just talking yesterday about and kind of what you were saying, when you override your nervous system so many times, like your subconscious starts to not trust you a little. Like when you're feeling in your body that it's a no, like, ew, that feels gross and I don't want to do it. But then like you say yes to it anyway, or you don't speak your truth and you drink your coffee that you actually don't really like because they made it wrong, but you just didn't say anything. You're like subconsciously programming that your perception of the scenario is less important than everybody else's. And then that's like a really, really hard pattern to break long term. That's how we fall into people pleasing. Like we don't want to disrupt the flow of anything. So we just kind of cater to whatever the current noise is and move on from it. But it's so underserving to who we are as women and as humans on this earth. Like we were given free will to make the decisions that serve us. And we were talking in class yesterday too about faith too, where like some people are like, oh, well, if I'm, need to love you like Jesus loved you, then that means that I can't have a courageous conversation with you. And the reality is that's not true, right? Like that's not, there's two things you're supposed to take care of, right? You're supposed to align with yourself and you're supposed to align with God. And if people don't fit that like scope of of either of those, if they're not aligning with you and they're not aligned with God, then you already know, right? Like you'll be able to feel it, you'll understand it. But then people get trapped in the like, well, I have to love them. And I'm like, you can love people from afar. You can love people without having to openly participate with them because it's detrimental to who you are as an individual, right? And so I think it's just so powerful. Both of those, act courageously and advocate fiercely, are essential skills as women. Working your no muscle, right? Like a lot of us aren't good at saying no, even though we should be a lot better at it. I am also a recovering people pleaser, so high five. Me, I guess. Recovering. I'm actively in recovery. Where now I go, oh, do I want to do this or do I not want to do this? And I'm able to like sit in an empowered state versus like I need to bypass this in order to, not upset the tea kettle ever. So any final closing thoughts about Thanksgiving or gratitude, or does the company that you work for have a website?
Yes, it should be just firmfoundationyouthhomes.org.
Okay, foundationyouthhomes.org.
Yes, we have an Instagram.
I love that. Yeah.
Firm Foundation.
Firm Foundation. Okay, beautiful. And are they a multi-house company? Or they just only have one right now?
No, we just have one right now.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So mentorship is available, right? I'm assuming there's some credentialing that has to happen with that, which is all the state requirements, like a level 1 fingerprint clearance card and all of those. So yeah, if you want to, like per Lily's recommendation, mentor any of these young women who are looking for enrichment and support, definitely reach out. Firm Foundation Youth Homes.
Yes.
.org.
And we do take other volunteers. You can volunteer, be in the house. That takes a lot of credentials to get to that point, but you can volunteer to bring meals to the home. There's a lot of different ways that you can get involved. Birthday presents, Christmas presents, planning birthday parties. The mentors that we have that come in are through a separate organization. I'm not sure what that organization is.
That's okay.
But I'm sure if you Google an organization, mentor foster kids, you can find one and get involved there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because this is pretty much across. Most of the organizations that I've worked with in the past that do support foster children, even in that capacity, the credentialing is basically the same because they're, at the end of the day, they're wards of the state, truthfully. And so when it looks like that, the state supports their growth and development. So there's probably plenty to get involved with. But if you want to get involved with Lilly specifically, go ahead and reach out to that company. And also, Lilly, what's your Instagram handle? So if anybody wants to follow you.
Lilly.Jarodek.
You want to spell that?
Lilly.Jarodek, Jiroudek.
Beautiful. Okay. Beautiful. I just want people, because you're absolutely fantastic, and they might have direct questions on even how they get into a position like yours, right? If I want to work with kids, if I've been a camp counselor, if I'm a teenager that's looking for an internship, whatever that looks like, there might be an opportunity for them to connect with you in order to just kind of explore what that looks like. So thank you so much for being a part of the Young Athena podcast. This is something we kind of dreamed up one day, and it's become a beautiful reality of just getting to reconnect with all of you and really understand your story and how Young Athena is serving you in your life. So thank you, since I know gratitude is so important, for being here with me today. And I can't wait to see what your future holds. You're so, so welcome.